Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast, where conversations are worth hearing and seeing. You can watch each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen on Spotify or podcasts. And for more information about past shows, as well as this show, you can go to our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and coming to you from my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and uplifting stories by people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Dave Penland, who's president of Reems Creek Nursery in Weaverville, for being my guest today. And Dave, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends on YouTube who are watching this. And that is Dave Penland. As you can see, you see on his shirt, he's from Reems Creek Nursery. Dave Penland studied horticulture and business at North Carolina State and Appalachian State Universities. He is a licensed North Carolina landscape contractor and is currently president of Reems Creek Nursery in Weaverville. So the question I always ask Dave, the first time I meet somebody, is when you were a kid growing up, did you grow up in Weaverville area? Are you from this
I
area?
did. I first of all, thank you for having me on the show.
My
Um,
pleasure.
Second of all, yes, I did grow up in Weaverville. I graduated high school in '87, so that gives you an idea about how old I am. I grew up at the end of Reems Creek in a little community called the Beach Community.
Okay. And when you were growing up in that little community outside of Weaverville, did you always know you wanted to be in horticulture?
I knew I always wanted to be outside. I love to be outside, so it was just natural. To follow in my parents' footsteps with this business, which at the time was landscaping and a plant nursery.
So then your parents were the ones who started the business?
Yes, I was 10 years old whenever my parents decided to start Reems Creek Nursery. Originally, we called it Reems Creek Valley Nursery, but later on we shortened the name, dropped the valley. Um, but yeah, and it started in our front yard, up at the end of Reems Creek Road, about a mile and a half past the Vance birthplace, if you know where that
I
is.
do, sure.
Uh, yeah, so folks would at that point in time, that was like in 1979. In fact, it says you can't see it, but it says
No.
established 1979. Folks would drive out and talk with my folks about the kind of plants they needed. There wasn't very many places that you could go to buy plants back then. It's not like today. So the business evolved and grew from there. But I always knew that I wanted to be outside. I couldn't stand to be inside. I had to be outside. My grandparents lived right across the dirt road from where I lived, and they had cattle. They raised crops. I was always in the way helping them do something.
So how old when you started working in the family business?
Well, 10 years old. I mean,
Oh,
I
oh,
was,
from 10 years old? So
yeah, right from the get-go.
what did you do as a 10-year-old?
So my first memories are, see, at the time, my father was working as a design engineer for Square D Company. So he was employed full time, had a good job. Um, and when we started the nursery, he started the nursery part time. So on the weekends, he would go out and do projects, landscape jobs for. Really, it was for some of the other folks that he worked with at Square D Company. And so, earliest memory is going out on a Saturday and helping him install a landscape project.
So when you were doing
Yeah.
that, was it always a fun thing for you?
Yeah, it was always fun. I enjoyed learning how to do things, anything, whatever it was.
Okay. So talk a little bit about then, so not only from a 10-year-old, but the business then started growing. And so the benefit for the folks who don't know Reeves Creek Nursery, describe it if you would, and keep the description if you can under 3 hours. We'll kind of give the Reader's Digest version. But what is Reeves Creek Nursery all about?
Okay, Reems Creek Nursery is really my mother's idea. Whenever I got old enough to where she didn't have to tend to me as much, I was the youngest. I've got one sibling, an older sister. Um, my mother started It was my mother's idea, and my father was happy to help. And Reems Creek Nursery is it's really about plants. It's about connecting people with plants to enrich their lives. We believe that life is better when you've got a lush landscape around your home. So we help connect people and plants.
Now, what about people such as yours truly who know very little or nothing about plants? I assume you work with those folks?
Oh yeah, yeah. You don't have to come in with a horticulture degree. We're happy to meet you wherever you're at. So some folks come in and they want to grow vegetables, and we help them. We've got a website that has information on how to grow a vegetable garden where there's no prerequisite. You don't have to already know something. There's other folks that come in that they just build a house. They want to know, they want to landscape it, but they want to do it in a way that looks nice. We'll help them decide what to plant and where it should go. There's things to avoid. There's plants that don't grow well here, and sometimes if you go to the wrong store, you see those plants sitting out for sale, but they won't survive the winter, and so we advise folks on what does well and what doesn't.
Now, since you mentioned it, the website, if you would, what is that website?
Okay, it is reemscreek.com, and it's spelled Reems Creek. So reemscreek.com.
And so if people go there, what will they find?
Uh, you'll find our landing page, and then if you scroll up, you can click on like trees, shrubs, perennials. You can see what we have in stock. It's a live inventory that's on our website, so you can see what we have in stock, how much it costs. If we have an item that we have it on order, it'll say on the way, and then whenever it arrives, it'll change from on the way to a quantity in stock. Uh, Also on our landing page, you'll see a banner across the top with different categories. Some of those will be like workshops. We have workshops oftentimes in the early spring on Saturdays. You can see those there. Last Saturday, Ruth and I taught a seed starting workshop. So you'll see that one listed. I think this next weekend we will have a workshop on how to prune fruit trees. So there's a link where if you want to sign up for it, you can sign up. Other things you'll see is you'll see a button that says resources. You click on that, and then there's a whole. That's where our library of gardening information is. There's one that says garden guides. You click on that, another menu drops down. You can choose perennials, annuals, vegetables, trees and shrubs, houseplants, and each time you click on something, it will expand to more information. And all this information is tailored for Western North Carolina. You're not searching a database from somewhere out west where the climate is different. This is information that we have gathered over the years that we've put down for people that garden in Western North Carolina.
Now, one of the other things you do too, and you mentioned this as well, is that aside from individuals such as myself, you also work with other landscapers. Is that correct? Or people who, you know,
Yes, going back in the past, for a period of time, for a long period of time, my wife's waving at me over there. They're making faces at me. Anyway,
okay, I'll
we
wait for
did
her.
have we did install landscaping ourselves, but we've since specialized into retail. So folks come in and they're looking for a landscaper. We're happy to connect them with several landscapers that we know in the Weaverville area.
So, do you have people such as myself who come to you know nothing about any of this stuff? You know,
Oh yeah, all the time.
and so this is
And then
something.
we have people that think they know all about it.
So, can that be done? In other words, if you come and start, you move into a house or development, and you have no knowledge, what's the first thing they should do? Come to one of your workshops or just speak to one of the folks there?
Just come in and talk to us. Maybe bring some pictures on your phone. Even better if there's an area that you want to landscape, take some measurements and some pictures and come in. I would say try to avoid coming into the nursery with a lot of questions um, on a weekend, on a Saturday in
Good
May,
point.
because we're very busy. So if you want to try to hit us on either weekdays like Mondays or Tuesdays, or even Wednesdays or slower days, if you've got a lot of questions, I mean, we'll be happy to help you however we can, whatever day you want to come. But I do know that on Saturdays, especially, we can get pretty busy.
Well, I like the sound of that, though. That's a good
Yeah,
kind of busy to
yeah.
be. So talk about right now, you and I were talking a little bit about off the air that it's it's going to be spring eventually, but it's not spring today. What should people be doing now in the season to get ready for the spring season?
Well, there's some pruning that you can do. There's also some things that you should not do. It's one thing that you should not do is rake clean the shrub beds around your house. It's okay for some of that leaf litter to lay on the ground over the winter, and not rake it up and clean it up until maybe right when things begin to bud out. And that's because many of our beneficial insects, like our pollinators, they like to overwinter in that leaf litter. So that's one kind of newer trend that we're advising folks on. Now that we learn more about how the cycles of the insects play out. Um, Another thing to remember is that mid-April is the best time to fertilize your trees and shrubs. So don't fertilize yet. If you fertilize too soon, you can make the plants begin to grow when they shouldn't be. So I always tell folks, remember tax day, mid-April, to fertilize. Um, there is some pruning that you can do now. That is one thing you can do. If just make sure that it's not a shrub that blooms on old wood. If it's a shrub that blooms on old wood, and you prune it now, you might be pruning off your blossoms that are going to come around this summer. A rhododendron is an example of a plant that blooms on old wood. So the best time to prune a rhododendron is going to be right after it blooms, which is in late summer or summer. Um, so that's just a few things that I could advise folks on.
Let me ask you another question that I'm interested in as a dog owner now for the first time, and that is I always wonder in terms of dogs, more so than cats, but dogs, good or bad to allow them to go on people's yards and lawns,
So the one thing about dog urine is it's acidic, and
right?
if you're wanting your turf grass to look premium, then
Right.
you don't want your dog to go relieve himself in the same spot on your yard every time, because you'll get a brown spot, and that has to do with the acidity in the soil there. Um, Now there's so that's the short answer there. Now, if you can find a spot off to the side, preferably a mulched area, even if there's some shrubbery around it, that's okay. But that would be a better spot for dogs. Although I will tell you, my yard has taken a hit in the last 2 months. We just got a dog, and not only is she going in the yard, but we also have a vole, one of those
Right.
little critters, and she's digging after that vole, trying to dig it up, and so my yard's a mess right
Well,
now.
it's funny you say that because we're trying to get our dog to go into the yard, but it only wants to go into other people's yards. So,
So, yeah.
um, you, but anyway, something to do. And same thing too. You mentioned the dog urine. What about the poop? Is that
So the
what
poop
about that?
is not as bad for the grass, but it's got other other reasons why you don't want it, because you don't want to step in it. Um, After about a week, it starts to decompose, and it's not as yucky as it is when it's fresh. But that's really not going to cause your grass as much problem as the urine is. It's the thing I would say about the poop is, scoop that up and throw it in your compost pile.
Because
Work it into the compost.
we try to do that, but it just always bothers me, Dave, that some people don't. They just let the dogs run without any leash, and they just never pick up. So it's kind of annoying a little bit, but um, that's what
Well,
you have.
I don't live in a community. I've got plenty of wide open space all around me, so I don't have to worry about that.
Okay, well, I live in a community, and so I do worry about that. In terms of the season, so we talked about what's coming up come the next couple of months or something. Is this if you want to have a good lawn, I assume, or you want to have plants on your property, it's a year-long proposition. You have to be doing this all the time.
Well, it depends on how far you want to take it. Um, Typically, when you have a garden, and a garden can mean different things to different people. When you say I like to garden, what does that mean? For some folks, it means I want to plant rows of tomatoes and peppers and green beans and have a harvest. For other folks, it means that they want to have, hostas in the shade and blooming perennials and always have something in season that's showing color. Um, so there's a lot of different ways to enjoy plants. There's not just one way. Um, the so it can be as much or as little as you want.
Can
Um,
anybody grow plants that where they get vegetables? Are vegetables something that anybody can grow?
oh, of course, certainly, certainly. You can start seeds inside right now, and I will say this: gardening in general is done best if you give a little bit of attention all along the way, rather than a week of neglect, and then you try to give it all the attention on a Sunday afternoon. That doesn't work as well as if you give your plants a little bit of attention every day. Um, so that's one word of advice. But anyone can raise food. Anyone can grow food. Um, you have to be dedicated to making sure that the plants have what they need. Um, Not too much water, not too little, um, and sunlight and the right temperature, and you're golden. You,
Are there some places that can raise plants or vegetables without watering, or can you have a situation where you have plants that are good for somebody who doesn't like to water them?
well, all plants need water. Some just need it in different rates than others. Um, so there's been a lot of research done on that. I don't know if you've heard about these hydroponic
Sure.
systems where you can just float the roots in water and then you as long as you keep the tanks topped off, you don't really have to pay attention. But there's other things you have to pay attention to. So that hydroponics is a whole branch of horticulture that requires some special knowledge and skill. The easiest way to grow plants, I would say, would be in the spring and summer, planted in the ground, because the moisture levels are easier for me anyway to manage. Um, you can get a timer so that it turns the water on, and you can set a schedule. Uh, you still need to check up on that to make sure that you don't need to increase it or decrease it. So and also um, you have to adjust for Mother Nature. If it's cloudy, if it's cool, your plants aren't going to dry out as fast. If it's windy and sunny and warm, you might have to double the how frequently you water your plants.
You raised a good point in terms of like Mother Nature. Do you have a situation where there's too much water coming on the ground or the plants? How do you deal with
Oh
that?
yeah,
How can you
yeah.
deal with that?
Well, typically we don't have um, we haven't had too many scenarios where it's just too much rain. But if you're growing plants outside, there's not much you can do. You can't make it not rain.
Right.
Other than just make sure there's not berms of soil that are causing the water to puddle up and stand. around your plants. Um, but if you're watering by hand, you want to make sure you don't keep your plants constantly soggy. That's a good way to kill a plant, is to keep it constantly in a swampy environment. Um, so it is possible to have too much water. It's also possible to not have enough. Plants just like to be in that happy medium.
What are ways you mentioned for somebody to find out if they have too much water, right? There are gauges or devices you can tell if your plant has enough water or not enough water.
Most of the time when a plant is planted outside, the first year that you plant it, I'm talking more about shrubs now. Like if you buy a 3 gallon size shrub and you plant it in the ground, um, when you take it out of the container and you put it in the ground, all of its roots are still right there in the size of that container. So a lot of folks will think, oh, it rained and it'll be wet
Right.
over in the middle of the yard, but they won't go check right where all the roots are, right? If it's in its first season of getting established, plants can need more water than you realize. That's the biggest reason why a tree or shrub won't make it, is because it didn't get adequate water, consistent water during the first season.
Should you get one of those gauges to see if they're getting enough water?
So those gauges are, I can do just as good by sticking my finger in the ground and looking at the soil. So now, if they may be helpful to some people, I think the way they work is they measure the electrical conductivity, and the wetter soil is, the more it conducts electricity. They do work. So if you're not sure how to look at the soil, or feel down there and gauge how moist the ground is, then yes, get one. It does work, but it's not necessary, I don't think.
Okay. We're accepting, again, for folks who have very little experience in this, just starting from scratch. Talking about starting from scratch, Reems Creek your nursery is going to go through a change, I understand you were telling me, in the near future. You've been where you are for how long? Since 89?
Since 1984.
84.
So the way our business progressed, in 1979, it opened at the end of Reems Creek Road at our family home. And then in 1984, we moved from the end of the far end of Reems Creek Road into Weaverville, um, at exit 18 on what's called Future 26 now. And we're still at that location. Um, and but in the next year and a half, we're going to be moving the next exit down to exit 17, and that's going to be a big upgrade for us in terms of facility. Right now, our facility is dated. It's old. The building where our checkout garden shop used to be a John Deere tractor dealership. And when it went out, closed down, we were able to move into it. So we've kind of sprawled out over the last, golly, 30 years, or however long it's been that we've been there. Um, and we're on a slope, so it's not the most efficient layout. But where we're going, we've got a designer that works with garden centers all over the country, and he's helped us come up with a layout that we're pretty excited about.
They'll come in the next year and a half, you say it?
Yes, the permitting process is complicated in Buncombe County here, and so we're working through that. And I know that we're about to see the light at the end of the tunnel, where we can begin construction. But we haven't yet begun construction, but we're right there on the cusp.
Now, in terms of after you have a new facility and moving forward, where do you see, I guess, both two things, both your company going and also the nursery industry, which has changed radically? Where do you see it going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, one thing that's happening is, demographically, our younger customers are coming online, you might say. they're learning about gardening, whereas maybe they didn't know much about it before. And so that's an exciting segment. These younger folks, I say, I'm 56. So when I say younger folks, I'm thinking folks that are in their early 30s or younger. Um, and they have a different approach. There was this big segment, which was the baby boomers that love to garden and get outside, but they're kind of aging out of being gardeners. Um, having to shift and cater towards the younger crowd uh, is good. We've learned how to do that. The younger crowd's a lot more responsive to digital marketing. We opened up a Shopify account. There's a way that you can buy plants online now. We're doing something called pre-orders, where um, we know we're going to get 100 of a particular type of plant in, but we're not going to get them for a month and a half. But they can buy them online in advance, and then when they arrive, they just come in and pick it up. That's called pre-orders, and that's been real popular with our customers. Um, so that combined with a new facility in a year and a half is going to be great. But the biggest reason why I think Reems Creek Nursery has done so well is because we have awesome staff that work with us. I just can't say enough good things about the folks that I work with at Reems Creek Nursery. They love plants, and they love working with the public. And so, helping people, the public, connect with plants. Our staff is awesome.
How many employees do you have approximately?
So I would say in the off season, it shrinks down to maybe 10. In the busy season, we may have 25 or
Okay.
more.
And one of
Yeah.
the nice things, speaking to you, I'm just thinking out loud with you, is that people are worried about AI, but one of the nice things about what you do, it would seem, is it's not going to be impacted all that much by AI because people are still going to have to grow the stuff, plant it, take care of it. That's kind of a nice thing when you think about it, that there'll still be nurseries, hopefully 10, 20, 50 years from now. You think?
Yeah. Well, I know, unless we can figure out a different way to grow food, there's definitely going to be plants in production. Now, you'd be amazed at some of the automation that has come online with growing plants for food anyway. There's some greenhouses in the Netherlands that are amazing as far as how they've automated with equipment, how they can grow a crop of cucumbers or bell peppers. They have sensors that can see where the fruit is and be able to pick it mechanically. Um, but there will always be humans involved in the process. I have no doubt.
And you were talking lastly about, growing food plants, but also growing food. So do you grow your own food as well?
Yes, and actually, my oldest son is the one that does most of the gardening here at the house. Um, because with my role at the nursery, I tend to work a lot versus my time that I have to put into gardening here at my own home has gotten squeezed a little bit. Um, but I like to grow sugar snap peas, and I like to grow them in raised beds, not necessarily directly in the ground. That's one crop. I also like to grow lettuce. I'm kind of partial to what's called the cool season crops, which are the early spring vegetables, which include lettuce and spinach and snow peas. Those are my three favorite crops to grow. Now, Cody, my oldest, he's got a larger garden plot where he'll grow peppers, tomatoes, okra, a lot of those warm season crops.
And so Dave Penland, once again, if folks want to find out more about Reems Creek Nursery, I guess the first thing is to go to the website.
Yes,
Okay.
um, officially it's www.reemscreek.com, but I think you can just do reemscreek.com and it'll still get you there.
Okay, I'll find everything they want to know about some of the stuff you offer people. And they'll also find out, very interesting, you mentioned the seminars, how the workshops. How often do you do those?
So we do those as frequently as once a week. Um, During the height of the spring season, let's say April, May, when we're really busy, we may dial back the workshops, but other times of the year, we have them as much as once a week on Saturdays. But you'll always be able to go to our website, which is reemscreek.com, and click the workshop link at the top, and it will show you what's coming up.
And do you have anything coming up?
Yes, we have Joy that works for us. She's very knowledgeable about fruit, and she is teaching a class this coming Saturday on how to prune fruit trees or any other small fruits. So if you're have a home orchard or you want to plant some fruits on your property, you should sign up.
Sounds good. Dave Penland, I'd like to thank you for being my guest on this edition of Blaine's World web podcast. Also, I thank my producer, Cappy Dissetti. Hopefully, one of these days we'll bump into each other. That'd be great. Thanks, man.
Of course, we'd love to see you. Bye.